Hello, my name's Mark Stringer, and this week we're going to talk about how to cook up the perfect software development project using just a backlog and a burn-up chart.
I have here, as you can see, some lovely fresh stories. You might have had a workshop to gather lots of nice stories together. You should go and look in all the different places that you might find stories and collect them all together in one bowl. Okay, so now we've got that lovely bowl of stories. We're going to prepare those stories for development by sizing them in terms of complexity. So what we're going to do now is take all our lovely stories, tip them out onto the table and sort them under the columns of the Fibonacci numbers. So now what we want to do, now that we've got our Fibonacci numbers set out, is to look for one of our stories which is the simplest story possible. Now, these numbers have just been used to compare complexity, so they don't mean anything outside of comparing stories together. But what we're looking for here is something nice and simple that we might want to give a lower score. So if we look at, for example, this story, that looks pretty complex. Maybe you don't want to give that the lowest score of all the things. This one might be relatively simple. So maybe we can give that 5. And then what we want to do as a team and involving the product owner is to compare all the other stories that we have with that story and say, okay, so for example, sync with phone. Is that more complicated than login? I think it looks like that. Is it twice as complicated? Is it 4 times as complicated? And as a team, we agree where to put these. Okay, so after maybe an hour or so of chatting together as a team, what we hope to end up having at the end of that is something like this. It's a sorted set of stories, sorted in terms of complexity. So what we end up with at the end of that process is a bunch of stories, and each of those stories has a complexity point score. And that's great, because now we have complexity points on the cards. We can collect all the cards together and count how many complexity points we have on all the cards, and that gives us a total score for the whole project. And that's great because now we can create a burn-up chart. So what's a burn-up chart? A burn-up chart has got, let's start with, 2 axes. On the bottom here, we've got time. And in an agile project, we normally mark out time in terms of sprints. And then on the y-axis, we have total points. Now, the total number of points in our example is 788. And so a burn-up chart has 2 axes, time and total points, and then it has 3 lines. First line that we're going to mark on here, in blue, if I can find a pen, is the total number of points in the backlog. So as I said, that's 788 points. So that's a line that goes along as straight as I can make it. So after 2 weeks, we've completed about 50 of our points. So we can start to draw in the second of our lines, which is actual progress. And after another sprint, we can add more progress so not quite so much done this sprint. And so 2 weeks after that, we've got more progress. We can mark that progress on. And then what we can also start to do is to mark in the final line, which is, given this line here, where do we think we're going? So this is the predicted line. How long it will take us to do all of the work in the backlog. So when those two lines on this chart meet, the green cross line and the blue line, that means everything that's in our backlog, in our bowl of stories, has been completed. But if we look at our graph, our chart, that doesn't look like it's going to happen for a very long time. What can we do? Well, there's two things we can do. We can just accept that and wait and wait and wait to have our project ready, or we can do something else. We can try and lower that blue line. How can we do that? Well, we can talk to our team, we can talk to our product owner, we can talk to some stakeholders who want this project, and we can convince them that at least for this first stage, some of the stories just aren't necessary. We could get this project working without these ingredients. And if we can get the agreement to take out these more challenging, larger stories at first, I've done my calculations, and the result is that the number of points in the backlog is much smaller. Takes us down to 267, somewhere like that. And if we extend that line, we can see that our project is going to be lovely and baked around about sprint 5. I've been Mark Stringer, and what we've been talking about today is how to deliver a successful agile project using just a bowl of stories and a burn-up chart.